Animals have so much to teach us, but one of their biggest lessons is how to see through the lens of love and similarity instead of differences.
We're live. Hey, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, and I am so excited. Today with me is Dr. Jeff Feynman, who many of you have already met, and most excitingly, Ellie Laks with the Gentle Barn. And this is going to be a really fun episode because we're going to talk about something that I used to love to do, but now it's an actual thing, and that is cow hug therapy. But before that, for those of you that don't know Elle, she is an animal communicator and healing expert who consults with people, animal rescues, and sanctuaries all over the world on how to save, heal, and treat their own animals. And she is a powerful speaker and author of My Gentle Barn, creating a sanctuary where animals heal and children learn to hope. And I think that is such an incredible combination. She's appeared on some of the most influential media outlets, including The Ellen Show, People Magazine, Life Magazine, Animal Planet, The Huffington Post, Turning Point, Women's World, NBC, CBS, ABC, PBS, The New York Times, and what else have you not actually been on? That is amazing. So that's just wonderful. Dr. Jeff, who many of you have met, he is a molecular biologist since 1985 and the founder of Holistic Actions, which is an online platform focused on empowering pet parents to help their beloved companions. He helps them do this by connecting with spirit and by listening to and working with symptoms to make fully informed decisions about their care. He is spearheading the movement to bring conscious and compassionate communication through a positive and practical veterinary spirituality to pet care. His mission is to optimize pets' lives by bridging the gap between holistic and conventional veterinary medicine through nature-inspired, energy-driven actions. Jeff helps to empower pet parents with resources, webinars, and a supportive community, ensuring that their furry friends live their healthiest and happiest lives. So, welcome to you both. I'm so delighted you are here. And now for the answer to the $1,000,000 question: what is cow hug therapy?
Cow hug therapy is something that we've been practicing for the last 25 years at the Gentle Barn. It's when we're suffering from depression or anxiety or stress or loneliness or just need a really good mom hug. We can spend an hour with the Gentle Barn cows, put our faces on their sides, close our eyes, clear our minds of thought, lower our heart rate and match it to the cows, rise and fall with their breathing, get grounded and centered, and feel an exceptional and unique brand of healing without words or thoughts. And it just opens up our intuition. We can feel the energy coming from the cows, and we leave hopeful and stronger and more positive and more vulnerable and open and humble where healing lives.
It's amazing stuff. And that's what I love about cows. Any animal that spends 18 hours a day ruminating, and I mean that in the sense of, yeah, it's pretty hard to get them into a sympathetic state, and we can do that through conventional practices in terms of husbandry. But I think cows left to their own devices just stay super chill. So that's amazing.
Yes, left to their own devices, cows are a remarkable tribe and society. They're matriarchal, they're vegan, they care for one another, they raise their babies, they discipline each other's teenagers. That matriarch protects everybody, and she's very strong when she needs to be, but she's also incredibly nurturing, giving love to her entire family and making sure that everybody meditates together. And I think they have so much to teach us about being still, being quiet, and finding ourselves.
That's great. Sounds like pretty much everyone could benefit from cow hug therapy. So, are there specific people that you find have more benefit than others?
I absolutely agree. Cow hug therapy is literally for everyone and all of us, especially since the pandemic when we're all affected in one way or another. But I've seen extraordinary things happen when people come suffering from grief. Parents that lose children, that lose parents or grandparents. Traditional therapy is wonderful when we've gone through a trauma that we remember. We can dissect it and look and explore it and find the lessons within. But when we're too shut down and too angry to really participate in traditional therapy, or we don't even remember our trauma because it happened as a child, traditional therapy is going to be less effective. And especially when we're grieving, we're hurting so badly, but there's not much to talk about. In those instances, coming and instead of talking in your left brain, we can be immersed in our right brain and feel rather than talk, be rather than do, and connect rather than feel alone. The results are extraordinary.
That's amazing. And there are many therapies out there like EMDR and that sort of stuff that get you to attempt to process a trauma in a different way. But I think what you're saying about this is that's so critical is that if you are so shut down that you cannot process at any level, it sounds like just by putting your arms around that cow and feeling the breath and feeling the hug and feeling her warmth, that would be a way to get you into a place of actually being able to experience senses again, which is what gets shut off with long history of trauma. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you discover this? How did this light your world?
I discovered cow hug therapy when we rescued our very first cow named Buddha. She's right here behind me. She was my very first cow and I loved her to pieces. But one night, after a very long day of having many visitors and lots of responsibility, I was saying goodnight to everybody. And on my way out of the barnyard, I sat down just to spend a minute with her. And she wrapped her neck around me and held me. And I was so surprised at this unexpected show of affection that I burst into tears and I wept out the day. And I just let her have all of my stress. And she washed it away and she made me much stronger for the next morning. And I came to rely very heavily on those nightly hugs because she was keeping me strong during the founding of this organization, raising the money, reaching out to people. There was a lot going on. And she is the one that kept me strong and kept me going. And it wasn't but a few weeks when I realized I can't keep this to myself. There are other hurting people out there in the world and they need these hugs too. And so I opened the Yellow Pages and I called out to different foster agencies, drug and alcohol rehab centers, domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, probation camps, really all these agencies that had people that were suffering, and invited them to bring their clients out. And they did, and the healing was extraordinary. And once we reopened after the pandemic, we realized that it wasn't just people and agencies that are suffering, it's all of us. And so we rolled out cow hug therapy sessions for individuals, anyone. They can be in an agency, they could be referred by a therapist, or they could just come out and spend a delicious hour with our cows and leave whole, leave healed, leave different. And we've seen incredible stories.
So did you create cow hug therapy, or maybe it sounds like Buddha did?
I called Buddha the founder of cow hug therapy, and then I'm just her agent bringing people to her.
That's so amazing.
What was interesting is in the beginning, I thought Buddha was just a very unique individual that happened to love me that much. But then she taught the other cows to do it. So over the span of 25 years, it's not just Buddha that has been giving this special brand of nurturing to hurting humans. It's all of the matriarchs, once they heal, once they recover, once they trust us, they want to pay their healing forward and help all of us. And being included in their family is such an honor.
That's amazing. So how did you start this rescue or foster situation? I guess you're, as this phrase goes, you are a foster failure, but really what you're doing is rescuing these animals from situations. Talk about how you got started in that.
The Gentle Barn was a dream of mine since I was 7 years old. It's all I could think about as a child, that when I grew up, I was going to have a big place full of animals and show the world how beautiful they are. Took me a really long time to get started because I had no idea how to actually start. And I write about this in my first book, My Gentle Barn. The longer version of the story is that I discovered a petting zoo. Make a long story short, started taking animals home from there that were dying, resuscitated them, and realized I had started my dream. A few years later, Jay Weiner came into the Gentle Barn, started volunteering, started helping. A year later, we fell in love and joined forces to expand our mission. So we're now located in Los Angeles, California, St. Louis, Missouri, Nashville, Tennessee, and we hope to expand to New York.
That is amazing. So how have you done that? You've just found locations and people that were willing to follow the model that you've created? Is that kind of the idea?
You can't franchise a nonprofit. So we actually,
Well,
yeah, we found the land, we raised the money, and then we've got amazing staff at all three locations that take care of the animals and host the tours. And we travel a lot to those other locations just to check in and support.
that is incredible. That's a tremendous running one location is an incredible amount of work when it comes to making sure the animals are well cared for. But it sounds like you've got things really set up correctly so that you've got oversights in place for these other locations, and then the folks there sup- in those individual locations are able to follow your plan. And good on you for being able to do the travel to make sure it's being executed correctly.
Thank you. It's a process that we keep refining every single day, trying to figure out how do you manage people that are not where you are. It's had its challenges, but we have phenomenal staff and volunteers that help us do our work. And Jay is wonderful at really just dropping everything and traveling, either to pull animals from the darkest places on earth or manage and support the other staff. He's wonderful at really being there for all of us.
That is amazing. So, where do the majority of these animals come from now that you're bringing into these safe shelters, safe spaces for them?
So the philosophy of the Gentle Barn is to take in animals that have nowhere else to go, animals that are too old, too sick, too injured, or too scared to be adoptable anywhere else. And so we work with the police department, animal control, other rescues, and people report abuse and neglect all the time.
Amazing. And so it sounds like not just cattle that are coming in, but animals of all species and stripes. Is that correct?
The Gentle Barn is home to horses, donkeys, cows, pigs, sheep, goats, chickens, turkeys, peacocks, llamas, alpacas, and we even have an emu and a duck and dogs.
Wow, that's crazy. And everybody's figured out how to coexist properly within each of the groups.
Animals have so much to teach us, but one of their biggest lessons is how to see through the lens of love and similarity instead of differences. And our animals are so incredibly peaceful and gentle. And really, the only reason we have some animals in different areas is for our own convenience on feeding them. But aside from our own convenience, all of the farm animals live together and they're gentle and they're kind. And we've had remarkable interspecies relationships. We had a turkey that was madly in love with one of our goats. We've had a chicken in love with our pig. We've had incredible animals that seem so different to the human eye, but they only see similarities in love. It's beautiful.
Wow, that's just astonishing. And Jeff, how did you connect with Ellie? Because you were kind enough to introduce us.
Allie and I met when we were just figuring the love paradigm for small animals, for dogs and cats and household pets, and we just clicked immediately because we're very much like-minded. Ellie gave a webinar for holistic actions last year or the year before, and last year we did an interview on the Sacred Paws Summit. We've just talked for hours, and we could not be more like-minded as far as love paradigm, the connection to spirit, animals, and our own health. Because the cow hug paradigm is what helped heal me from depression and anxiety and lifelong unhappiness. And I still haven't hugged a cow, Ellie.
Oh, you've got to come out to the dental barn nearest you and hug a cow. We would be so honored to have you.
No, that's it. My plans, especially if when you guys come to New York.
Yes, yes, hopefully soon.
Golly, Ellie, have you used some of Dr. Jeff's concepts, like the beam concept, to understand how a new a new animal coming into the gentle barn is doing in terms of, okay, we're making progress and supporting them, or really they just get there and they're like, oh my God, thank God I'm somewhere safe. How, what's the usual experience these guys have?
The first protocol for bringing in a new animal is utilizing animal communication and talking to that animal and finding out what they've gone through, what they're feeling, needing, and wanting, and also talking to our existing animals, asking for their help and support in welcoming that animal. So that's the first step, making their homecoming seamless. Once the animal's home and they're starting to get to know the animals, then obviously we have to evaluate where they're at physically and emotionally. Most animals that come into the gentle barn are traumatized both physically and emotionally. And so we put them through a 30-day quarantine where we make sure that they're healthy before putting them with our other animals. But also it gives us an opportunity to start building their trust. And we have staff and volunteers sitting with them for 4-hour shifts, meditating with them, singing to them, reading out loud to them, getting them used to us coming and going so that they can learn this new and strange kind of human that they've never experienced before.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. And once we've established their health and we've connected with them, with sitting with them and giving them cookies and getting to know them, then when their 30-day quarantine is over, that's when we start doing specialized services. Some of them need acupuncture, massage therapy, chiropractic work, energy healing, vet care, medicines, parasite treatments, all of those things once we can finally handle them. And then once they're healthy, then we introduce them to others of their kind so they can go out and pasture and they can frolic and they can join a family. And then we can continue building that trust and giving them whatever health care and care they need. But
It's amazing. Yeah, please.
sorry, I just wanted to finish by saying Dr. Jeff Feynman and I we really are like-minded. He's all about holistic practices, and so are we at the Gentle Barn. Yes, of course, we use veterinary care, but we use so much holistic medicine, holistic practices to really support the animal long-term. So we have a lot in common.
That's awesome because I'm sure that many of these guys have had more than their fill of conventional veterinary care, which is only geared towards one thing, and that's getting maximal production out of these guys. And that's just what a beautiful skill to be able to use your communication abilities to say, hey, where are you? What's going on? How can we support you? Do you find that some of the animals are unwilling to communicate at first because they're not sure how to process how you're communicating with them?
Honestly, I have spoken to literally thousands and thousands of animals, not only from the Gentle Barn, but around the world with my own clients. And I've only had one cat who I introduced myself and I said, may I speak to you? And he turned his back to me and said, no.
Cats.
He was a very cantankerous fellow. And so I just introduced myself and I talked about his mom and I told him more reasons why I wanted to communicate. And he finally turned around and gave me his attention. Ooh, he was a tough cookie. By the end of the communication, though, he literally saluted me when he said goodbye. He was an interesting teller.
That's great. That's crazy. But that's what I've heard from other animal communicators. Cats are going to be the ones that are like, no, if there's going to be somebody. So that's so interesting. And when you start communicating with some of these animals that have been incredibly traumatized, are they quite surprised that you're there and able to listen?
Some of them act from surprise, but most of them act from relief. Can you imagine a whole lifetime where you don't speak English or Spanish or what have you, and they have needs and wants and feelings, and they're surrounded by people that don't look them in the eye, don't call them by name, and can't see them or hear them, and finally they have someone at their attention? There is so much relief when they can finally get it out and be served the way that they need. Yes.
That is, yeah, I can't imagine that. So we travel a lot, and being in a language I've got no comprehension in, it's like, golly, we're able to communicate more through body language. No, I cannot imagine being an animal stuck in especially a servitude position, and it's just you're being ignored and yeah, dis constantly powered.
And
So
I'm
yeah,
sorry
please,
to
Jeff,
interrupt, Ruth, but I just want to
please.
go back to your beam question because Ellie doesn't need the beam. Ellie embodies the beam. Part of the reason that we beam is a quality of life paradigm based on the quality of life, not what's wrong with the animals. And seeing the beauty and the love and the connection, and with Gentle Barn embodies that, and everything they do is beyond the beam in a lot of ways. That's why I just applaud and hope that what spreads far and wide from
Yeah,
the Gentle Barn to around the world.
Coming up with
yeah.
these methods and sharing them with people and supporting people when they have hurting animals, that there's other options as well as vet care. God, my hat off to both of you, really.
Thank you. But and that, Jeff, that totally makes sense because that's a method that we folks that don't have the ability to understand the messages that are being sent to us can use to have an assessment. But yeah, the ability to communicate directly, that just you can ask, how are you feeling? What's going on? How can I better support you? But that's kind of it. In medicine, we're trained to look for what's wrong instead of what's right, but that's human nature in general. So amazing that you're able to say, wow. So in when you're bringing a new animal in, you've gotten them through that quarantine period, you've gotten them some basic care, then are you able to say, hey, would you like to start helping humans that are suffering? Or how does that go about? How does that work?
So the new animal sees it modeled for them because they see other cows participating in the healing of humans. And it's something that we never ask them to do or try to train them to do. It's something that they step up and choose to do when they're ready. And some of them don't. We have cows that we actually have at our Sun Chlorella Healing Center, which we're not open to the public at that location because we have cows that are so remarkably traumatized by humans that bringing them to our main location where there's people around them at all times would cause them tremendous stress. And so they get to be with their bovine family. They get to love each other. There's a caregiver, obviously, that feeds them and waters them and grooms them every morning. But other than that, there are no demands and they just get to be away from humans. But then there's other cows that are very affectionate once they learn to trust. And so we have them more at our main location where they get to observe the other cows in service. And at some point, they just step up and they offer themselves. They say, I'm ready. Just the other day, I had a remarkable experience with our cow, Rosalie. She's relatively new to the Gentle Barn. She's our newest cow. And when she came, she was very traumatized after losing her child. And so she was crying and calling out and isolating and depressed, and she wouldn't let any of us touch her. We did our usual thing. We left her to our own devices. We didn't force ourselves on her. We didn't approach her. We just came and went, made sure there was food and water, interacted with the other cows so that she could watch, but we demanded nothing from her. Little by little, I started, because I come every morning out to the cows and I give them cookies. So little by little, I got her to take cookies from my hands, which then led to after cookies, me being able to scratch her shoulders and her back and her neck. And we established a relationship. But we still weren't having our guests pet her. But after a few months, we started inviting maybe one adult at a time to scratch her and pet her. And then she realized, wow, what human hands can do is really great. So then we started having all adults pet her, and then it transferred to children. But we have not asked her to participate in cow hug therapy yet because she's still moving through her process. Just a few days ago, I hosted a cow hug therapy session from a woman that was referred to us by her therapist. And she went into the barn and she walked over to Rosalie, who was laying down. And I was about to say, oh, she's not ready for hugs yet, when something inside of me told me, don't say that. So I didn't. And I watched this young woman walk over to Rosalie, sit down beside her, drape her body over her shoulder, put her face down, close her eyes, and I watched her cuddle with Rosalie for at least 35 minutes. And I was just weeping watching this because Rosalie was ready. And of course, I was watching her body language to see if she didn't want this woman to lay down, but she held still. She wrapped herself around this woman and she said, I'm ready. Don't tell her I'm not ready. I'm ready. It's beautiful.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Gosh, what a privilege to witness that transformation from a place of distrust, dis-ease, disharmony into one of harmonization with the family that these guys are joining into. Wow.
Yeah.
That's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. Dr. Jeff, you mentioned that you and Ellie have been collaborating for quite some time. What are some of the concepts that Ellie has introduced you to that you've been able to translate for the rest of us humans to use to support our pets and the other animals we experience?
That's a great question, Ruth, and I'm not sure what the answer is, except it's an application of what is already there as far as the energy and connection. And but the cow hug therapy is something that we teach, and I guess in a way we have adapted it because we teach it with dogs and cats as well. When you have a bond with your dog and cat, or cat, they can, or your household pet, they can provide the same sounding board, the same kind of emotional support that many of us need. And many of us have emotional support, cats and dogs. And the fact that we can use that paradigm of the cow hug therapy to help ourselves and our animals heal, I think is, for me, the greatest application of cow hug therapy that I've seen.
That makes total sense. It just is crazy good stuff. And the Mountain Haven Animal Rescue says they're ready for you to come and welcoming you with open paws. So I don't know if you know these folks, but it sounds like that would be an amazing connection.
Oh, God, yes.
As you get ready, Mountain Haven, if you will send an email to, oh golly, I'm smart enough today and I'm a little slow on the draw. To this email address, I will make sure we get your contact information over to Ellie so that hopefully we can help form a good collaboration for New York.
I would love that.
That would be amazing. This is the beauty, for all of its faults, of social media. This is the beauty of what it can do is, oh yeah, I can help you do this. So this is just the best part of being able to support. When a new client comes into one of the Gentle Barn locations for a session, have you found that it's difficult for them to make the leap into what they're doing, or they're so ready for any help? They're just like, I'm right there, and they slip right into what needs to happen.
Yeah, it just depends. Some people are cow lovers, animal lovers. They've driven 18 hours to get to us. They dive right in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But other people are very intimidated by the cow's size. Some of our cows are 3,000 pounds and 7 feet tall. So they're very intimidated by their size. They've never been next to such a large animal. They want to know how it works. And so I just simply model for them what it looks like to hug one of our cows. And then usually after they see me do it, they sit down and they do what I've showed them to do, and then they're in heaven.
That's amazing. And my wife did some work with equine assisted psychotherapy, and that's more talking, but this is just simply interacting, although the horses sometimes change the rules. So for people that are using this as a therapeutic modality, how do you find that they are able to really speed up their sort of the next step into that healing process? What does that look like for most people?
Yes. Oh my God. I can tell you so many stories of people that were absolutely stuck in their regular traditional therapy. They couldn't find the words. They didn't want to talk. It was, they're staring at the walls. The session feels like it's going forever. The therapist feels frustrated because she doesn't know how to jumpstart into healing. The person feels frustrated because they just feel so bottled up and not knowing how to talk about things. And the therapist refers them to the Gentle Barn, or they find out about the Gentle Barn, and they come for a cow hug therapy, and there's something about it that just jump starts that person. We had a young woman come. It was actually, we were still closed during the pandemic, but and I write about this in my book, Cow Hug Therapy. This is one of the stories that I tell. There was a young woman who was in foster care, and during the pandemic, very isolated. You can imagine her life issues and what she's gone through, coupled with being a teenager during the pandemic. Oh my God. And they wrote to us and they said, look, I know that you're still closed for the pandemic, but I have someone who literally only responds to animals. She is in real trouble. Would you make an exception? And I thought to myself, I'd rather get COVID than say no to this request. Absolutely, they're coming. So we wore masks and we social distanced, but I invited them to come out. And quite frankly, it was nice to finally be able to do something for hurting humans during the pandemic instead of sitting on the sidelines feeling helpless. So I was grateful for the opportunity to actually do something for someone. She came out and she would not look at me. I asked her, oh, hello. I tried to say hello to her. She wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't talk. Her eyes were fastidiously stuck on the ground. So I realized, okay, let's just go to the cows, because I didn't want her to feel awkward. So we went to the cows, and our cow, John Lewis, who is the youngest member of the cow hug therapy team, he was a baby at the time, and he bounded over to her and he started licking her arm and nudging her and leaning against her. And she started laughing and laughing. And then she started asking questions about him. All of a sudden, she's looking at me and she's talking to me and she's asking questions. And miraculously, we found out that she had the exact same birthday as him, July 23rd.
Wow.
Which I know, so random and fortuitous. And so they connected and she started laughing and talking and cuddling him and scratching him. And that opened her right up. And from there, I was able to escort her to our matriarchs, who held her and hugged her and held still for her and meditated with her. And boy, when she left at the end of the hour, she was a completely different human being. And they kept returning her. She would come every week. Sometimes we walked the horses and practiced confidence and leadership skills. Other times we would hang out in the upper barnyard with the piggies and the turkeys and the chickens and the goats and sheep. But she always found her way back to the cows to hug them. And her and I developed an enormous bond, but she was able to be cracked wide open and pulled out of her shell because of these cows. And I think one of the most remarkable things, at least from my vantage point, watching cow hug therapy take place, is how intuitive these cows are and how much they know what these people need. If the people need a good laugh, the cows will do something silly and adorable. If they need to be grounded and centered, the cows will hold still and meditate with them. And if they're in real trauma, the cow will wrap their necks around them and hold them. They know without words, without explanation. We never ask them their stories before they enter the Gentle Barn, because the cows know what to do.
That's just, that is so beautiful. And that's the amazing thing with animals. If we give them the opportunity, they intuitively know before we even do ourselves, I think, what we need and how we need to be nurtured, and I think that's probably as good a word as any. Now, you've mentioned your book a couple of times, so I'm going to drop a link in here because this is one way that people can support this mission. And I think it is just a critical mission. So, talk a little bit about this book, Cow Hug Therapy, How the Animals at the Gentle Barn Taught Me About Life, Death, and Everything in Between. Those are huge lessons.
I'm so excited about this book, Cow Hug Therapy, because each page is filled with stories of some of the most remarkable animals we've ever rescued, their resilience, what they've gone through, their stories, and how much they have to teach us. I learned self-care from these animals. I learned to recover from grief from these animals. I learned to walk someone home when they're passing away from these animals. I learned to have a daily meditation practice and sit in the stillness every single day because of these animals. And I've recovered from compassion fatigue because of these animals as well. And not only are the pages filled with these animals and the lessons that they teach us, but it's filled with remarkable stories of hurting humans and how they found healing and salvation in our barnyards. The connection between animals and humans is so beautiful. And I've been in a barnyard for 25 years. So watching cows form a circle around someone who's in childbirth and supporting that mother, watching them surround each other when someone's grieving to show them that they're not alone, forming that very same circle when someone's passing away, and each one taking a turn, stepping forward and bidding farewell and paying their respects. These are things that I have seen in my barnyard, but realize that the majority of human beings out there have not been that lucky. And so this book is so important because it's sharing the beauty, the magic, the love, the lessons that I get to witness every day, but most people don't. Now they get to read this book and feel like they're in the barnyard with me.
As you're saying this, that makes me think of the idea that we've lost the ability to do those actions in our human family in modern culture. I think in indigenous cultures, these same things happen. You protect your family, you bid farewell to those that are leaving, you support the new life that's coming into the pack, into the group. But we've lost the ability to know how to do these things innately. What powerful lessons these guys are trying to remind us of. Just
Yes. When you look at human civilization hundreds of years ago, we were very similar to the cow tribe. We were matriarchal. We ate mostly plants. Family and togetherness was our most treasured value. We were one among nature, and we had reverence for the earth. We knew how to communicate with each other, both to other species. We knew how to communicate with animals or humans that might be on the other side. We were very connected. We were very intuitive. We were very connected to ourselves and each other. And when I look at the world today, this fast-paced, high-tech, concrete world that we've created for ourselves, it is completely unnatural. We've lost the connection to Mother Earth. We've lost the connection to animals. We've lost the connection to each other. And we've lost, most importantly, the connection to ourselves. We don't listen to our own instincts and intuition. We listen to everybody else. We are bombarded with messages and information coming from a million different angles, but we don't take the time to sit in the stillness and kind of exercise the still small voice inside of us. We have lost the tribe, the congregation, the community to be able to support one another in birth and in death, to be able to know where to turn and how to process loss. Most of us in our society, when we have a tragic loss, we suck it up and go back to work the next day. We try to pretend it's not happening. It never works. Cows are ever present in our world to remind us of who we used to be and to hold space for us to return to that tribe, to that feminine energy, to that beautiful family, return to our intuition, return to animal communication, return to the connections that we can have with ourselves and each other. They are there holding space for us to step back and awaken to love.
beautifully said. Beautifully said. And Dr. Jeff, I know that's part of what you are helping pet parents to learn through your holistic actions group. Part of it is navigating dis-ease, but part of it is navigating the return to listening to the small voice as well. And so if you can add in your 17 cents, that would be amazing.
Sure, I would love to. First of all, thank you, Ellie. Those words were amazing and beautiful, and that is the world that I hope we can go back to in the next short while. And one of the things that I think is standing in the way for most of us mere mortals that don't get to hug cows on a daily basis or live among the animals is fear. We live in fear that our animals are going to get sick, that we're going to get sick about this or that. And my mission really is to help decrease that a little bit by giving us tools that are informed by the paradigm that Ellie just talked about, because that same paradigm that we're not anywhere near right now is able to inform our pet care today to get us into the place where hopefully we'll be back in a very short while, where we're able to live in harmony with the world, where we're able to live with each other and ourselves and listen to all of the sounds spoken and unspoken around us. And I will have to say that my full-time job is listening. It's trying to get out of the way and listen to what right now the wind is saying as it rustles through the trees. Yeah, and the fact that all that will help rebalance the world, rebalance our animals as it rebalances the earth is just what's just very important to me. And I see Ellie as somebody that's doing that, right away. And what we're trying to do in holistic actions, just train pet parents to do that a little bit more.
And that is the key, right? Because if we can, I think that going back to living in a tribal setting, maybe that's not going to happen. But if we can figure out how to bridge the gap from where we are now, where we are so disconnected from ourselves, from each other, from all of the animals, all of the beings that inhabit this planet with us, and most importantly, from the planet itself, if we can figure out how to do that, I think we all three are sharing that vision of where we can be. I want to thank you both for spending time helping to increase exposure to this idea that there is another way, and it simply is a matter of making a different set of choices. And with each opportunity, with each choice you have the opportunity to make, maybe we can be a little bit more like cattle and take a deep breath and chew on it for a few minutes before we say something. They just are such incredibly beautiful animals. They'll look at you, spit the cut up, chew on it for a minute, and then, okay, and then take an action. But I think if we, as humans, if we can own that gap and make that gap between opportunity, and action a little wider, then we can move closer to that world of harmonization. Thank you much. So for those of you that are not near a gentle barn, Dr. Jeff has an opportunity for you to join his Holistic Actions community for 7 days at absolutely no charge. So you can check it out, understand what's going on there, and learn some amazing techniques to help support not only your dogs, your cats, but yourself, and other animals that are in your household. So Dr. Jeff is a master at owning the gap, as others have called it. I love that about you. It is rare to hear anything come out of your mouth that is not well considered. And again, this is the way to support the Gentle Barn and what Ellie is doing. is number one, go buy a copy of her book. The stories there are amazing. If you need a lift in your day, this is a great place to go to read a story of overcoming. So as Helen Keller was asked in an interview, Miss Keller, through her interpreter, Miss Keller, there's so much suffering in the world, and we had such a rotten hand of cards. And her response was, yes, there is so much suffering in the world, but there is also the overcoming of it. So Ellie and Jeff, thank you so much for being part of the overcoming of suffering in this world. And for all of you, I hope you've enjoyed this segment. This has been amazing. I was having a heavy day. I'm feeling exponentially lighter. So thank you to both of you. And we'll be back next week with some more amazing and cool information. So you've got information on reaching out to Dr. Jeff, reaching out to Ellie. And if you want a way to learn how to connect more, we can help facilitate that. But I think if you go to thegentlebarn.com, I think I put that link in here somewhere earlier, you can reach out directly and be connected and be in support of this amazing issue. So thank you to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ruth. And yeah, it's always great to be with both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, both of you.